So I just got back from seeing Eddington, a new film written and directed by Ari Aster, who is well known for films like Hereditary, Midsommar, and Beau is Afraid. Starring Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, Austin Butler, and who else? Who else? Oh man, the actress from The Penguin who played Oz's mom. But that's neither here nor there. This is more of an ensemble cast with a slight more focus on Pedro Pascal's character. And what's this film about? Well, it's basically chronicles the tale of start of COVID. I'm sorry, I just got out of seeing this movie, and I really don't know how to describe it. Oh God, how do I describe it? Basically, it chronicles the tale of a small town sheriff who feuds with the mayor, played by Pedro Pascal, during the early days of COVID in May of 2020. And it basically just details the time of this town during that era. Now, that isn't what this film only is. It is a lot more than that. And there is a switch halfway through where it goes from being essentially a reflection, a slice of life during this time period, to something much more. Now, I have only ever seen Hereditary. So I guess my familiarity with Ari Aster's work is very limited. I've heard conflicting things of Midsommar, and I've heard conflicting things of Beau is Afraid. But what I have heard, and what seems to be the general consensus, is that Ari Aster is a polarizing filmmaker, deliberately. And this is no different. If I can summarize at least a good chunk of this movie, this is a reflection of what 2020 was as a whole, a very volatile time in American history, and world history really, but mainly American history, which saw a sort of social paradigm in a Civil War sort of sense. And it does not shy away. It uses all the vernacular, all the rhetoric, all the bravado of the time, and it doesn't try to take a side. It basically shows what it was like during this time and shows just what people were like. It's basically just a checklist. It's as if Ari Aster went on Twitter and was just scrolling through, which by the way, social media plays a huge part in this movie, which I love. But it's like Ari Aster just scrolling through, scrolling through Twitter and just looking up everything in regards to 2020, looking at tweets at the time and just goes, yeah, this is a good thing to write. Ooh, that's another good thing to write. I'll write that too. It covers everything. The Black Lives Matter riots, COVID, masking, AI, big tech, literally everything under the sun. And it does so in a manner that may piss some people off because it doesn't actually take a side. This movie essentially just tries to paint a picture of what 2020 was like. It's sometimes to its betterment, sometimes to its detriment. And there are times where it really works. This movie is unintentionally hilarious, or even if the intentionality is deliberate, it's still pretty damn funny. There are a lot of moments in this movie where I found myself laughing along with the rest of the audience. And there are times when, there were awkward moments of laughter where clearly it's like, wait a minute, should we be laughing at this? But I will admit, at around an hour and 10 minutes in, there's a couple things that happened that caused a couple couples in the theater to get up and walk out. And apparently, when I was researching this movie, there are always people that walked out of Ari Aster movies, and I guess this is no different because I saw multiple people get up and just walk out. And let me get my review at least out of the way in terms of my score. I give this maybe an 8 or a 9. Don't get me wrong, this movie is fucking incredible. It has this weird mix of Coen brothers, westerns, And even, excuse me, even like a slice of life, it is very good. It's meant to push buttons, and it's also meant to engage in dialogue. However, at times it feels like the director was going off a checklist. You know, I need to cover something. Let me cover that. Let me cover that. Let me cover that. And not all things of 2020 are covered equally. Um, it seems like about a third of the way through, they just kind of give up on the whole coronavirus aspect, and then focus more on Antifa and the Black Lives Matter riots. And unfortunately, this movie does kind of waste some of its cast. Emma Stone is in it, and Austin Butler are in it too. However, they are in it very, very briefly. And of course, their performances are deeply impactful and come back in ways that you're not expecting. But at the same time, it's like they straight up, about maybe halfway through the movie, and I'm sorry if this is a spoiler, but they just leave. Austin Butler leaves, and then Emma Stone's character leaves, and you don't see them again. And it's very frustrating because it's like you have these big name actors and they sort of feel wasted. And on top of that, this movie is damn near close to being 2.5 hours long. It is a long movie. And that's the thing. Pacing wise, I think they were trying to make this feel more like a sweeping Western epic on a small scale, if that even makes sense. And for the most part, it does work. I'll admit it. I never once found myself, bored. But by the time it was over, I looked at my watch and I'm like, wait, it was only 2.5 hours? It felt like it was four, And I do mean that in a positive. Like I said, I mean that in a positive way, if that's even possible. But, there is so much that happens in this movie. This movie, like I said, halfway through, this movie takes a turn. And when that turn happens, it becomes an entirely different movie. And that is around where, if you're not on board, you are not going to like where this movie goes. Because this is basically two movies in one. The first one is a slice of life. The second part is a deep, dark detective western. And literally, you can pinpoint the moment that switch up happens. So if you're not on board with that kind of switch up when it happens, and trust me, you will know when it happens, then you're probably not going to like where this movie goes. And that's kind of unfortunate. But for me personally, who went in knowing nothing, I had a blast. Don't get me wrong. There are times where the dialogue is so real and the situations are so real. You feel like you're teleported back to that era. And it seems so long ago because so much shit happened in 2020 that it felt like it was a decade within itself. But it was literally 9 months of 2020, March to December. And just as 9 months felt like a decade, these 2.5 hours felt like four. And I do mean that in a good way, despite the connotation being negative. There are times where this movie gets a little too real. It does get preachy, but not in the way that you think. It gets preachy in a different sort of scenario. But that's a spoiler, and I will not get into that. Overall, Eddington is a damn fine movie. And I had a blast. A good chunk of this movie is more of a reflection of what America was during that point in time. And for those of us who will have to grow up remembering it, this movie will make you feel very uncomfortable because, hindsight, ironically enough, is 2020. And reliving it was definitely eye-opening because, we can go on a whole tangent about how we lived our lives in 2020, how we handled certain situations, how we handled controversies. But overall, it happened. And this movie, at times, may not feel like it's narratively cohesive, but I think what Ari Aster's intention, at least for the grand scheme, is what exactly was 2020 like? Chaos. Pure, unmatched chaos, which is exactly what kind of movie this is.